Back in June of 2024, Buffalo Trace Distillery announced Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr. Barrel Proof Rye Whiskey, a new uncut, unfiltered rye recipe, joining the E.H. Taylor Jr. collection. Why did I seek this bottle out? Well, to me, the Colonel Taylor Rye stands out among other Buffalo Trace products. Supposedly, E.H. Taylor Rye is the only product that uses this particular mash bill, so when the chance to try it at Barrel Proof was announced, I couldn't wait to try it. Is it worth the hunt or the ridiculous secondary prices? Let's find out. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me keep climbing to that 100,000 subscriber milestone. Thank you for the support. Now, as you may or may not know, Buffalo Trace doesn't disclose their mash bills, but we know they have two different rye mash bills. One is a low rye mash bill that is used to make Sazerac Rye, Sazerac 18, Thomas H. Handy, and Van Winkle Family Reserve Rye. The other is used exclusively to make E.H. Taylor Rye. Now, supposedly, we have a high rye mash bill that also uses a good amount of barley and no corn at all. Now, of course, this whiskey is named after the father of the modern bourbon industry, Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr., who purchased the OFC distillery back in 1869. E.H. Taylor was making straight rye whiskey over 100 years before its resurgence in the American whiskey landscape, which is, I think, something that gets overlooked about what he was creating. Now, the Barrel Proof Rye Whiskey is the 13th release to join the Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr. collection. That includes single barrel bourbon, sour mash bourbon, warehouse sea tornado surviving bourbon, 4-grain bourbon, and the Colonel E.H. Taylor toasted Pappy Van Winkle finish. Sorry, I made that last one up. I just wanted the flippers to lose their mind for a second. Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr. Barrel Proof Rye Whiskey is bottled at 126 proof. It's non-age stated. It's available now in limited quantities for a suggested retail price of only $77.99, which we all know is a joke because most people won't see this bottle for less than at least $1,000. So let's pour it, see what I think. All right, let's get a pour. So it's actually a little bit lighter in color than I thought it would be for a barrel proof rye whiskey. But again, we don't really know what this mash bill is. Supposedly it's just rye and malt. No corn involved at all, which I think lends itself to that chocolatey flavor that I normally get on the standard E.H. Taylor Rye. So, all right, let's dive in. Here we go. First thing that jumps out of the glass is actually a floral note. It's actually very floral, and it's also very rye forward. So I think that mash bill is definitely making itself to be known. I think the difference, and we will compare it to Thomas H. Handy here quickly, just to kind of go a little bit of a back and forth with those different mash bills. But I think with Handy being so much more candy forward, a little bit sweeter of a rye profile, this is a rye drinker's rye. I do get some of that chocolate in the back end, but it's more of a milk chocolate, not a dark chocolate. I'm actually really surprised how floral this is. But underneath all that, I do think there are some nice fruit-forward flavors. There's definitely some apple I'm picking up here. A little bit of a candy apple. And I think there's a slight dark fruit, almost grapiness type thing that's going on. It's something that I pick up in the standard Colonel Taylor Rye. I'm just wondering if it's going to be a little bit stronger here, especially on the palate. Yeah, I think along with that floral component, apple pear is still there, along with that milk chocolate. All right, let's give it a go. Let's see how it is. Here we go. Cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn good. I like how different it is. Again, that's the reason why I wanted to seek this one out, just because I do think it's so different from other Buffalo Trace products. It's just not as sweet to me as some of the other products that Buffalo Trace puts out. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for people looking to grab this bottle. Again, that floral component, the chocolate component, I do get some more of that apple, a little bit of a pear on the palate, but also there's kind of like this cherry grape combination that's very subtle also on the back end of this, which I really dig. Yeah, and I feel like the more you sip this, the more those rich fruit flavors come out. There's a nice peppery back end on this. It's what a rye should give you. A little bit of a finish. It also has a little bit of a drying effect, I think. Again, we don't know how old this is. It's non-age stated. Yeah, one thing I do wish that Buffalo Trace would give us is an age statement on this, especially for something that you know is gonna be flipped and be marked up for a lot more money. But I do think there is some age to this. I am getting a good amount of oak, especially on the back end. A little bit of a drying effect to go along with that pepperiness. However, that could just be the rye grain that's kind of drying my palate out a little bit. I'm getting a sip here. So on that sip, the chocolate is still there, but I get a lot of apple and honey. There's some apple coated in honey. Again, a little bit of a drizzle of a milk chocolate. The milk chocolate to me on this one, on this particular expression, is not as strong to me as I got on the standard E.H. Taylor rye, which I think is really interesting. It just doesn't bring as much punch, you know, from a chocolate standpoint. However, the apple, the pear, the honey, a little bit again of that milk chocolate does hit right in the back of the palate, right before you get into kind of the peppery and dryness on the finish. But I really do like the finish on this. It just goes, it lingers, gives you a nice Kentucky hug. This is a really nice rye whiskey. All right, let's compare it to the Thomas H. Handy. All right, so this Thomas H. Handy is 125.7 proof. So only, you know, 3/10 off of the proof point for the E.H. Taylor barrel proof rye. Again, we have a different mash bill here in the Thomas H. Handy versus the Colonel Taylor rye. So let's check it out. Yeah, Thomas H. Handy on the nose is just straight up candy. And I think you kind of know that going in. However, when you compare them, when you're going head to head, you really see how different these two mash bills are. Thomas H. Handy brings you like almost like cherry cola, creme brulee, caramel, but all with like this this inherent mintiness on the back end of it. Whereas the Colonel Taylor, a little bit more floral. The rye spice is there. But man, I don't know, it's just a different sweetness where this is coming purely from the kind of the inherent fruit flavors that it has from the Colonel Taylor rye. Again, that grapey, apple, pear kind of combination that's there. Then you have the Thomas H. Handy, which is almost giving you like a artificial sugary, like there's high fructose corn syrup added to it, which obviously there isn't, but it's kind of that elevated sweetness that you get when you kind of compare the both of them. All right, let's try the Handy here. Yeah, it's rye candy. It's cherry cola, Luxardo syrup, caramel, but everything is wrapped around like a spicy, minty rye spice, which I think why so many people love Thomas H. Handy. Now, when you compare it to the Colonel Taylor, yeah, the Colonel Taylor isn't, I don't think it's nearly as sweet. It's a different sweetness, but I think the different mash bill, the chocolate vibe to it, the floral component that it has, the oaky dryness that it has, it's just a different experience than you would get with Thomas H. Handy. So all in all, if you're expecting Colonel Taylor to kind of taste like Thomas H. Handy, I think they're pretty far apart. They both have their sweetness levels to them. It's just a different kind of sweetness. So, all right, let me think about this one. Let's do a final breakdown on the Colonel E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof Rye. All right, price for the Colonel Taylor Barrel Proof Rye, SRP $77.99. Buffalo Trace always gives us great hope with their very reasonable pricing. However, most of us will never see it for that price. So what's the resale market value right now? It's already going at about $1,200. Availability is obviously super limited, but when it comes to value, this is where it's gonna get tricky because what the value is for this bottle and what people are willing to pay for it is gonna be anywhere from that $800 to $1,200 range because it's a Buffalo Trace product. However, at $77.99, the value for MSRP, I actually do think it's a good value. You're getting some great whiskey, barrel proof. Again, we don't know what the age statement is, but it's really good and it's very different from anything else that Buffalo Trace makes. So as far as the value goes, at SRP, for me, I'll say it's a good value. Now on the flip side, if you're talking about secondary market prices, at $1,200, $1,000, no, I don't think it's worth anywhere near that. So if you're willing to pay that much or trying to get that bottle and looking at a bottle for that much, no, then it quickly becomes a bad value because I don't think it's worth, if you're gonna drink it, I don't think it's worth nearly that much money. Most I'd pay, given what's in the bottle, given the rarity of this one, and probably everyone going crazy for it, and I don't care what anybody says, it's a Colonel Taylor, it's a limited offering. I don't think, even though it's a rye, I don't think it's really gonna deter people from trying to flip this bottle. Remember, $77.99, if you're getting it for that price and flipping it for $1,200, that is a crazy profit. Now, as far as the most I pay for this bottle, just given what I'm tasting, so here's the thing also, Thomas H. Handy goes for about $400 on the resale market. And I think most folks would like the Thomas H. Handy better. So most I'd pay for this bottle, if I had a chance to find it in the wild and it was marked up, I wouldn't pay anywhere near $1,200 for this bottle. For me, this would go, I would say, probably in that same ballpark. Maybe $300 or $400 would be the most I'd pay, just given what I'm tasting, and also just, you gotta factor in some rarity on top of it. This isn't a bottle that's gonna come out every day, so I'd be willing to pay a little bit more to get this bottle. So maybe $300 or $400 is where my max would be. But $1,200, hell no. Alternatives, you can make a very long laundry list of rye whiskeys that are at barrel proof that could go head to head with this. I would probably go with the Sagamore 8-year and 9-year ryes because they have that low rye, high rye mash bill blended into it. It's got a nice age statement. You could find it for under $100. And I think in some cases this could go right against that. And for some people that may beat this one because it's a little bit of a different mash bill. So I don't know, double base coming soon. And lastly, is it a skip, a try before you buy, or buy and back it up? For me, it's good enough to be a buy, but here's the caveat to that. If you do decide to buy it, do not pay the outlandish markups for it, because you could just get a Thomas H. Handy for about $400 now. So if you're gonna spend the money on a high-end, barrel proof rye from Buffalo Trace, just get a Thomas H. Handy. This, I don't think, would really compete with it, and I think if somebody spent $1,200 on this, again, there's obviously a rarity to this. These Colonel Taylors only release, once every year. This one has been it was releasing last year, never did, then it came this year. Don't know really what happened with this bottle. However, I think if you're willing to spend $300 or $400 on a barrel proof rye from Buffalo Trace, get a Thomas H. Handy. I think you'll be a little bit happier. Again, this one's just a little bit different. Even though I like it, I enjoy it, I don't think it's worth the crazy markups for it. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Colonel E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof Rye. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know what you think about this one. If you've gotten to try it yet, or you're trying to seek one out, what you're willing to pay for it, or you're just going to skip it altogether. And with all that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on The Mash and Drum. Cheers, folks.